Right now, we're going to learn about your account setup, basic navigation of the app. We'll introduce project files and make sure that you feel comfortable leaving today, creating a project, and adding some team members. Right now, this is your landing page when you come into part 3. Obviously, yours will be empty in comparison to mine. As a quick overview here, you'll always have a list of your projects, and we will tell you how many tasks are outstanding. You can click into these quickly, and we will bring you right to that project. Along the right-hand side here, you have your mentions, and we'll talk about this in the documents once we dive into the workflows, but this is essentially where you and your consultant team can communicate internally in part 3 to keep all of the context at the document level instead of buried in email. Down here, you'll have a link to your organization where we have some more settings. Up at the top here, you'll see a few different bars. Your tasks, this is where you can sort by projects. Again, it will give you a clear list of what's in your ball and court and you can dive in. And then projects groups is really helpful for future analytics once you have a lot of projects in your company. So first things, top left corner, this is your basic navigation when you're in part 3, so you can hop between projects. This is your organization level. So right now we're going to talk about your company setup and what that looks like before you create your projects. So there's 4 different tabs here. Under people, everyone who is a member, that means that those are internal to your company. So this is everyone at part 3. You can invite your members here, full name, email, and this is where you can start to populate your internal team members. I want to talk about the roles here for a second. So admins can create projects, they can remove and change roles and things like that, but they also have a lot more flexibility under the settings here. So they control some settings at your organizational level, like disclaimers and naming conventions. Members can create new projects. They can view all projects, but they can only participate on the ones that they are added to. And a viewer is a free seat. It will not take up part of your billing. They can only view projects. They can't participate. They can't sign documents. So make sure when you're selecting the roles that you select a role that mirrors the role that they'll play on the project. Under the directory, this is all of your external contacts, such as your owner, general contractor, and consultants. If you have a CSV or Excel file of these contacts, you can import that and we just give you a little heads up of the properties that we need. You don't need to do this. As you're adding consultants and team members at your project level, we are continually populating this directory for you so that if you work with the same owner again, you aren't creating them again. We're just pulling from this list of contacts. So under the People tab is internal and external. Billing will let you know how many seats you're using out of your plan, and if you ever have any questions, you can just reach out to us at support. And then settings, this is where I mentioned that admins have more control. So this is where you can upload your logo and fill out some basic information that will appear on your cover sheets. Disclaimers, this is where you would upload a submittal disclaimer. If you issue instructions, any disclaimers that you have on that maybe follow AIA or CCDC standards or just your internal firm language. So you can add those here by clicking Add New. And if you're using Word or you have these disclaimers saved somewhere, just copy and paste them in here. Getting this set up is really important to do before you create your projects, because that way, once you create a project, we're already carrying forward all this information and settings. Cover pages is mainly for naming conventions. So here you will see all the different workflows in part 3, and you will see our naming conventions. So we call this a proposed change, which essentially means this is a document being issued by the consultant team. We would like a price before you proceed with it and before we issue a change order. So that's the part 3 logic there. Site instructions. This is intended to just be a document that doesn't change the actual dollar or contract duration. A lot of people call this supplemental instruction. So this area lets you control your own naming conventions that matches your firm's standards and assign those disclaimers that we already just entered here. You can, of course, change a disclaimer at the project level if you have a different contract type. You can change those disclaimers if you need to. Report layouts is for your site reports. This is so you can develop a firm standard, but we'll get into that once we get into the report training. And advanced settings, project categories. This is internal. It does not impact what happens on your project. It has nothing to do with that. But what it does do is allow you to group and gather analytics internally for your project types. So for example, you could tag all of your education projects. And then when you want to go back and look at how did these 3 education projects perform in terms of submittal review time? Maybe we're trying to win more work with this owner and we want to talk about this and show our value prop as a company. So categories is really only for analytics. It's optional and you can customize it. We have a lot of basic ones in there and you can delete, customize as much as you need to. Default reasons is for your change and instruction documents. For proposed changes, change directives, change orders, and site instructions, we have a reason area. You'll see our default reasons here, but you can modify them, add new ones as you see fit. So this information here that you enter at your organization level will trickle down to all of your projects. So make sure you get this set up first, ideally before you create your first project. What I'm going to show you next is the project creation. So as a takeaway after this session, we'd love for you to feel like you have the tools to go create your own project and populate the team. I'm going to show you now what that looks like at your organization level. Again, top left menu, go down and click into your org. Click this blue plus project button. We're going to ask you for very basic information about your project. This is never set in stone. So if you're creating a project that does not start for 2 months, it's just getting a permit, whatever the scenario, give us that basic information and you can come and modify the start and end date and the contract value at any time. So I will say that this is my getting started project. I'll give it a start date and an end date, contract value, and the time zone. Make sure you get the right time zone because this will be relevant on your field reports. These are the categories that I was just talking about. So maybe I'll just say this is an education new build project. The address, the project number, and any permit numbers, and then click next step. On this step, we want you to tell us which workflows in Part 3 are you going to be using. So this has to do a lot with the scope of your contract. So for example, SMILs and RFIs, every project will have those, so make sure they're toggled on. If you aren't responsible for certifying pay apps or anything like that, you could toggle that off. If you aren't going to be reviewing contractor quotations, you can toggle that off. Let's say I'm going to review contractor quotes because I will issue change orders on this project. I'll make sure that I have this one turned on. You can come back and modify these later on. And then when you're ready, you can click Create Project. If you know your project's going to be connected to Procore, you can toggle this on. But like I said, all of this can be changed later. If your project is out to tender, you don't know who the GC is yet, you don't know if they're going to be using Procore, don't worry about it. You can come back later. So as soon as you create your project, you're brought to this Teams page. The idea here is that you're inviting people who are involved on this project. So we want you to invite your internal team members, your consultants, your general contractor, and your owner. We want people to participate in Part 3 with you. This is obviously a collaborative platform, and the more the merrier, the more you get from the platform if more people are participating and everything is more streamlined for you. in addition to that, especially if you have a Procore connection in place. So all you want to do is click this plus company and plus contact in the top right. If you already have companies in your org, so maybe I had APM development was on another project, so they're still here, that's great. But maybe I'm creating a new one. I'm going to just type the company name and say create new company. Just give some basic information. But most importantly, I want to talk about the role. So a viewer, again, can only view things. They can't participate, but they can see what's issued. They can't see anything open. They can't sign. A subcontractor is very similar, view only. They can't participate and they can only see issued documents. A general contractor, if your project is Procore connected, you want them to get in first to make that connection. In part 3, they can also create submittals, RFIs, submit pricing, so they can submit quotations, and they can send your pay app for review. A project owner can come in and sign documents. They can see things that are in an issued state. Consultants can create documents, they can collaborate with you, they communicate in the app. So a consultant and a prime consultant have a lot of similarities. You will always be a prime consultant in part 3 because you're purchased part 3 and you have full control. The main difference here is prime consultant is obviously you control all the settings and you act as the gatekeeper. So let's say a consultant creates a site instruction because mechanical knows that they need to send out something to revise the ductwork. They can create that. It cannot be issued until you say it's okay. So there's a variety of roles with permissions, and if you're ever curious about permissions, you can always search it in this bottom right corner here. As well, if you pick a consultant, you'll see that we have a default list of standard common consultants, but you can always enter your own as well. So maybe I have a lead consultant. I can just type it out and then click create. And you can also have multiple roles. So maybe my lead consultant and electrical or landscape all work for the same company. I can give multidisciplinary access. As soon as you do that and you create consultants, you will see all of these different disciplines come on this right-hand side. And all you're doing is clicking these 3 dots to add a member. Again, you can search the directory if you want. If they aren't there, you can create it. And then each individual has its own role as well. So maybe on this one, Amy is only electrical. That's fine. She still lives under this company, but she's only electrical. And so now I want to talk about the permissions here. Dashboard permissions should only be internal to you. This has a lot of performance stats on it. So essentially, if the mechanical consultant is holding things up, they're not pulling their weight, it will show you that. Maybe that's not information you want to share with the owner or other consultants. So generally, we see people who have the prime consultant role just keep that to themselves. Sign-in authority is typically for prime consultants, general contractors, and owners. And these are people who need to put their signatures on the documents. Distribution list. This is if they want to be copied on different document types, but there's another area I'll show you where that comes into play. Then you'll see down here at the bottom, send project invitation email. If you don't want to send that yet, that's absolutely fine. We do see a theme. We do see customers add companies and add all their contacts, but they don't invite people until they're ready, until everything's set up and they feel comfortable showing it to the rest of the team. At that point, click these 3 dots and click send invite. Now everyone can come in, they can see the project set up, and you're ready to go. Under this settings area, we have a few more areas where I'll dive into. So general, this is the information I filled out when I created the project. Come in here and click edit and just let us know what is the review period in business or calendar days for submittals and RFIs. Essentially, what does your contract say that you have to review? Is your contract saying you have 7 business days to review a submittal, maybe only 5 for an RFI? Just let us know. We use that information to pre-populate due dates for you. Down here, you can upload one combined file for your specs and enable our submittal assistant. That will help us compare any of your submittals to your project specs and help you gauge how it complies with the spec requirements. Document settings. All of this carries over from those organization settings that I showed you. So for example, site instruction would already have my template that I established, and it would have my disclaimer as well. So as long as you get all of that set up at the org, you're pretty good to go here once you create your project. Then we want you to add assignees. And what that means is we want you to tell us who's going to be involved on these document types. Do this once your team is set up so that you can see the name of everybody here to pick, and then click next. You'll have a primary person. And then to streamline things, so you don't have to do this on each different document type here, just tell us if it applies to more. So this is my project. I'm kind of the person running it. So it's going to apply for all of the different document types on this project. I'll hit save. And then now I've done it. I don't need to go into each and every tab and do it. Reminder schedules, it's pretty straightforward. We will remind people for the different workflows that you have. Tell us how often you want us to send the reminder and when. You can delete or pause anytime, but we're trying to do some of the heavy lifting for you and help your consultant and internal teams remember what they have on their plate. Project budgets. This is for any contingencies or allowances you have, and we'll dive into this in the financials session. Distribution groups. This is where you can tell us who you want to be copied on submittals or RFIs or any other document. So for example, for submittals and RFIs, I would pick all the people I want to be copied. Then anytime a submittal is created, we're auto-populating this list for you. If your project has an integration to Procore, this is where your general contractor will come in and make that integration. We have a help doc for this in the bottom right corner, connecting Part3 and Procore. We have a little video. We have a guide for what the GC needs to do and what you need to do. And then it's only a couple clicks for them when they come into Part3. Export data. If you ever want to get your data in a nice folder structure outside of Part3, you can come here. It is a mindset shift of now you're not working on your servers. Everything is in the cloud for you. So as you get into these new workflows, we want to get that comfort level for you that you don't need to download files to your server when one comes in, when one's returned. We really want to avoid that duplication of effort. However, we definitely understand that this is your data and you want it. And so when you export this project, it will be in a nice folder structure, everything labeled for you so that you still have that on your server without having to do that manual lift every single time. Advanced settings, this is all pulled from my organization again. I can modify it here. Enable digital sealing. This is if you use Consigno or Notarius as an external software. If you have to encrypt your documents, then you could enable that. And we also have a document on that to help guide you how to use that. So that's here. And then you can always archive or delete your projects when you need to. The big red scary button will still make you type archive or delete, so don't worry about that. If you have project files enabled, we have drawing groups here, which is essentially if your project is built or your drawings are split up into different phases or groups, you just let us know that here. And then when you upload your drawings, we'll sort them for you. So that is the team and the project settings. This is really where we want you to leave with that confidence that you can create a project, invite your team members, add your consultants, but maybe don't invite them yet. And then we want to see you upload your drawings and your specs. We will send you some info on that with a little video to show you what to do. But next time we meet, it would be great to have those in place so that we can dive into submittals and RFIs and those core workflows.